Hello. Hola. How are you doing? Let's start another evening or, well, morning, depending on where you are, or afternoon or noon. I don't know. But yeah, welcome everybody. And yeah, let's see. Let's continue where we left it last week. Juan Toledano. Hola, muy buenas. Bienvenido. How are you doing? How was your week so far? I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do the stream, but still, yeah, I really wanted to do it. I think it is important to keep the routine, and of course, I have a lot of fun with it. Truth to be told, so yeah, so here we are. Okay, well, Juan, if it was short but fine, that it's a good thing. Happy to hear. For mine has been very long, very stressful, very tiring, but good overall, I can say. Still, yeah, I'm gonna be complaining and whining about the renovation at my place because it's a lot of work. And still, I believe it's gonna take 3 more weeks of living in this single room. So yeah, it's gonna be hard, but yeah, there we are. But you don't care about those things. Let's focus on painting. Let's see. John, thanks a lot for the like once again. You are so shy. You always like, but I don't know if you are aware that I'm streaming. It would be nice to hear how you are doing. All right. So I could spend a very tiny amount of time outside of the stream to push a little bit further the illustration, but not much, as you can see. So basically, I will be continuing with it and see where it is. But yeah, I started to add a little bit of details around here. There's something, yeah. But I think at this point, hey Cantabrian, hello, how are you doing? How was your week and weekend so far? So I was going to say that at this point, I think it would be nice if I start doing a little bit something with the corpse of the ogre or creature or whatever he just defeated. So I think I'm gonna try to jump into that and see if I manage to do it, because it's gonna be a tough one since it's supposed to be decapitated and like in some kind of water. So still not sure how I'm gonna display that. Also, I was thinking that after last stream, I think I agree with you guys that the thing with adding mustache and beard, not bear, beard kind of helps to reinforce and underline the narrative and the story behind the character and where he has gone through. So I think I'm gonna stick to that. Vicenzo, hi, how are you doing? Welcome to the stream. I think this is the first time I see you here. Maybe you've been looking before, but that you make a comment, so welcome. Thanks for sharing your amazing work. It is really inspiring me. Well, thanks a lot for sharing such a kind words. Really appreciate it. So thank you. Cantabrian, thanks. Well, and happy to hear that everything it's good for you. And by the way, I have to say once again, I forgot to post the like in a place where you can directly go to the link to my Discord server. Let me just post it once again. But for you, those of you that that already joined the Discord server, and I'm amazed with all the things that you've been sharing and the work that you are doing. It's like amazing. Yeah, you are very talented. Let me just let me see. Sorry, just let me change once again. Richard, hey, welcome and thanks for the like. Let's see. Where can I? One second. I should be more prepared with those things. Okay, here I can post. So, yeah, for those of you that missed it last time, so here is the, and of course you cannot see it. 1 second. Oh, I'm such a noob. I'm still don't know what I'm really doing. Let's see. Let's do it once again so you can all see on the whole chat. There you go. Now you should see it on the chat. Richard, hello, welcome. How are you? So I was saying that yeah. So there you have the the link for the Discord server. And yeah, so I was saying, Richard, that I'm gonna go with the beard and mustache thing because it really underlined the the story that we were talking about, that he's been stranded or lost for such a long time in these tunnels and dungeons, and so yeah, a little bit like this survivor kind of feel to it. So yeah, I will continue. Just I want to do some few things here, define some few things, and then I'm gonna jump with this lovely fellow here on the ground, because I think it's time for him to get a little bit more defined. Vincenzo, all right. Okay, well, once again, very happy that you managed to catch us live, and yeah, awesome to have you here. So did you had anything interesting during the week for you guys? Anything worth sharing? For me, like I was saying, it's just been client work and dealing with the renovation, which is very stressful and yeah, very tiring. So kind of I'm living in my own little bubble during these weeks now. There is nothing else than just my apartment, the work in it, and trying to manage somehow juggling with my own work. Having workers around, and carpenters, and taking decisions on the spot, and trying to how do you say, planned and coordinate all the works and all the different disciplines that they, yeah, it is not easy. So in that sense, my life is kind of boring. Nothing really interesting to share. It's very exciting for me, but yeah, not that interesting. I can say that I'm doing some very cool things at the moment, client or work. Some very fun things for Dark Tide. I'm doing some very, very cool characters. Of course, I cannot say anything about it. And I mean, nothing in detail, but yeah. And by the way, talking about video games, I've been looking at some few more videos that have been released about this Necromunda video game, the hired gun first-person shooter Warhammer 40k game. And I have to say that I really, really, really wish them the best. I really do. But somehow there are some things that I myself, it's not hitting the right spots for me. I don't know. I have a very specific. I have a very specific how do you say, opinion and vision on adaptations, and I feel that they are going into the wrong path, visually speaking. Let me explain. So far, the few things that I have seen is definitely within the IP, so there is nothing wrong there. But it's just that they are replicating, or the feel is that they are just replicating the miniatures, and what I mean by that is the toy look. Things look a little bit preposterous, and just by taking literally what you see on the miniatures and putting that on characters on 3D. And the thing is that it works in miniatures because it's miniatures. Everybody understands that it's just a stylization. It's a way to make things work in such a small scale. So of course things are out of proportions and etc. etc. But if you are trying to build that world in a context that looks realistic, you need to turn those things down a little. And it's like it's gonna look very cool in a, let's say, in a character having a lot of paraphernalia, so typical from Warhammer 40k, like I don't know, like sticks or spikes with skulls and stuff like that. if you are trying to take that concept, that idea, and translate that into a character that is going to move and therefore immediately gain certain level of realism, you need to design and show those elements in a way that are going to work with moving, and they are not going to become too heavy or too on the way. If you're going to try to run and jump and you have so many things, it's going to become very so of course you need to find a balance between being faithful to the look, but at the same time making things plausible, or that they can work to some degree. And what I have seen so far on the game, it's completely forgetting about that and just going literal. So a lot of characters with very weird, super exaggerated shapes, and that makes everything very cartoony and toy look. And I'm not saying that it's wrong, it's not my cup of tea. I really enjoy 40K for the grim dark and like a world or a universe, better said, that is could be real, and that's why it is scary. Of course, I mean, you understand what I mean. Just like aside from all the craziness of um, psychic powers, and yeah, but overall. And that's why, for instance, most of the good novels, they are trying to have a realistic approach to the universe, because if not, you cannot take it seriously. I know there are some people that take that this universe is a little bit humoristic. I completely disagree. I think there is room for humor and making like inside jokes. Of course, there is nothing wrong with that, but I think overall it's a very serious universe, and yeah. So yeah. Anyway, I'm just making a big rant, and I don't know if it makes sense. What do you guys think about it? I don't know. I feel that some of the characters there that I saw it, they are, for example, I'm remembering there is one panoramic shot of one environment where you have like the Escher gang members walking around, and you have a lot of chains or something hanging from the roof with bones, and they look like human bones, but they are huge. So once again, it goes into the toy scale of, I mean, things start to look like not real and just not serious, because those skulls and those bones should be much smaller in order to be real. The same thing with the guns. Guns can be big, but at the same time, I mean, it could be argued, let's say, that a space marine can hold a very big gun with one hand because it's very strong. A normal person shouldn't be able to hold a rifle with one hand and even shoot with that. You don't have enough strength on the wrist to do that. And as soon as you show that, it looks silly and doesn't make any sense. I mean, once again, it gets into the silly, or, well, let's not say silly, but like not real and more toy-like approach to the depiction of the universe, which it's not my cup of tea. So basically, that's what I think. And sorry, I just been in this rant. I haven't paint and haven't look or into the chat. So let's see. Let's Richard. Finally, I have watched many SCP Foundation videos on YouTube and have to say all of them were great, even those short ones. Thank you for the tip, Miguel. Oh, I'm very happy to hear. I think this is one of the awesome things by sharing these things, is like if you get to learn new things from others, and yeah, I'm very happy to hear that you like them. I think I agree. Some of them are fantastic. I mean, the level of creativity of people is great, and especially when it's combined with some of them that have very very high technical qualities. You know, like very well done, technically speaking. Yeah, it's great. And thank you about the Barbarian. Clever Contender. Oh wow, what a name! I love it. Uh, um, do you consider yourself more of an illustrator or concept artist? You have usually very detailed concept work. Well, I consider myself more of a concept artist more than anything, because that's most of the all the work that I have done. Most of my professional career has been as a concept artist, and not an illustrator. I've been starting to work as an illustrator very, very recently, since I left my last studio I was working with and started on my own. So that's gonna be almost 4 years now. And I didn't start to work as an illustrator immediately, so maybe it's a little bit less. So yeah, I'm more of a concept artist. Yeah, but I love to do illustration, and if I can in my concept art, I of course try to bring it to the highest level as possible if I can. But of course, I have to prioritize. So the thing with the details, I don't know. I try if I can, because of course the better, I mean the more details the better, but yeah, trying to keep it practical nevertheless. But yeah, once again, sorry, I'm just ranting. So yeah, more of a concept artist. Clever Contender. Damn, I like that name. Cantabrian, for sure. Designing for 3D articulated joints, purpose, function is a different animal. This is what I found when designing my interpretation of the sororitas. The shoulder pads don't allow for the arms to be able to move up. Yes, in the miniatures, obviously not good for the battlefield. Yes, for sure. So yeah, I agree. So it's one of these things that if you are trying to make something an adaptation, you need to modify and adapt to the things that you are going to be doing. So you cannot just copy paste what is in a miniature, because it is not designed to move, and there are things that are not going to work anyway. So yeah, I mean, I have to say as well that in terms, let's say for example, the example that you put about the sororitas shoulder pad, that they couldn't move upward, I totally agree. But at the same time, I could see that being the case in a real armor, as it has happened through history, that sometimes certain designs limit the mobility of, so you don't have full mobility, and it is fine. So finding certain armors that don't have, in this case, full mobility doesn't mean or equates that not being functional or real. It's just that they have that limitation, so to speak. And of course, I mean, at the end of the day, all these designs have been done with the rule of cool and not trying to make them real. So of course there's gonna be those type of issues. That's why if you are gonna adapt those designs into something that is gonna move or look realistic, maybe you need to modify those designs. Still trying to be faithful and close to the original design, but still you will have to do something about that. On the other hand, let's say one of the topics that I'm super passionate about within the 40k universe, the Space Marines armor designs, I think they actually could give fully mobility, I think it could actually work. Of course, applying science fiction um, um, capabilities for doing things, but yeah, I think they could move. But yeah, so going back to the subject of this type of adaptations, it's a little bit tricky. And for me, again, I insist, this is just my personal opinion, that I'm not very fan of just copy pasting, in this case 40k designs, literal, because I mean, if you just copy paste everything that way, it's gonna look silly. I always like to use this example, parallel example, with cinema and what they have done with superheroes designs. For the most part, they have tried to redesign the look of superhero outfits, because they look, if you take them literal from the comic books, they're gonna look silly on screen. Some of them work better than others, but overall they have gone through redesigns, and that's kind of what we need to do with 40k universe, with many things. Others, they are fine as they are, but many other things, they need to be adapted, and so they could feel more real. And this is especially a challenge with 40k, because it comes from toys. The same thing with when you see designs or models of vehicles made on 3D or trying to look realistic, and they take the proportions of the miniatures, and once again, that is wrong, because the miniatures are toys, and you can see a lot of that on the on the details. For example, the bolts and things like that. If let's say that this is a rhino, or I don't know, the basic chassis of a tank, and then you have bolts that are this big, because they are done like that on the miniature, the toy, so you can actually notice those details. If you scale that into a real vehicle, is gonna look like it's gonna maintain that look of toy, because details are still very big, and you need to scale down all those details. The same thing applies to characters. So once again, you have all these spikes, all these things, as big as they are on the miniatures, they are gonna look toy. They are gonna look like toys and not look good, and they are not gonna make any sense, because you couldn't move with that, unless, of course, exceptions when you have big monsters or space marines or things of that kind, that you could argue how that could work. But with normal humans, yeah. So that's kind of my concern on that level for the game. Of course, gameplay, I have no idea. It looks fun, very high paced, but yeah. So yeah, we'll see. I really hope that they do a fantastic job, and but to me, it's like I it's the fun inside of me is just kind of thinking that it is a shame that they are going on that route. And of course, I mean, being myself working for Games Workshop, or more especially in projects of other video games based on the Warhammer 40k, I understand also the difficulties with that are not merely artistic, and has more to do with IP policies, and how you and how IPs management is dealt with when they hand down the, IPs to other companies. So it is not as straightforward as people think as well. So I understand those things and the limitations, and sometimes they cannot do anything about it. And yeah, so there's it's multi. How do you say? Well, there are many different angles to that, and that might be part of it as well. But the result is what it is, and or seems to be, and it's. I think it is a shame, but yeah, we'll see. Richard, Cantabria, and I agree with you. Same goes to Space Marines and their body disproportions. Richard, the thing is that, of course, I mean, okay, depending on what you mean, uh, the Space Marines proportions on the miniatures are wrong. They are, once again, that's one of the things why a lot of people, when they do fan art, they've they fail completely doing Space Marines because they use as a reference the miniatures themselves, and yeah, it is. Yeah, they are toys, so you need to you cannot use them as a reference overall for proportions. Same, yeah. I mean, I'm repeating myself like a broken record. The same thing with the vehicles. I don't know, like in a Rhino, they are supposed to be able to fit 10 Space Marines with ease, and on the miniature, and no way that is possible, right? So that's why, for instance, when it comes to illustrations, I really, really, really enjoy and admired and and I'm thankful that when they do an interpretation that kind of fit a more realistic take on things. That's why, for instance, I believe Paul Dayton, no, sorry, Paul Dayton has done such a fantastic way. I mean, he's not the only one, but for me personally, he's been the biggest, and why he has affected so much the look of the 40 of the Warhammer. I mean, all the things from Games Workshop, but in this case that we're talking of 40k, is just like redoing things with a more realistic look. So things are still definitely very close looking like the miniatures, but still with that um, reinterpretation for things to look realistic. And it can be done. And that's what need to be done, in my opinion, for games, and then of course for films or short films and things like that. So that's why also I believe that's going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, challenge for the Eisenhorn TV series. And it's from an artistic point of view, of course. The normal challenges of any film or series about script and acting and all of that, but in this case, something unique to the IP itself is just being faithful to the IP, but at the same time making it look plausible and not preposterous. That's also, I mean, being myself a designer, a concept artist, that's one of the things why I feel so passionate and so excited about this new wave of adaptations of the 40k universe, because I really enjoy those type of challenges, and I think it is so very fun. That's why also the Astartes short films were so successful, because he really does a great job of interpretation and adapting things visually in a way that works. If you take a closer look, the bolters, the bolt guns, the Space Marines use on the short, they are not exactly as they look on the miniatures, and neither the proportions, but they work, and they work better because they are designed to look as real weapons, not as a toy weapon. Whew, now I can't breathe. Sorry. As you might notice, I'm very passionate about this subject. I really like it. uh, hey Peter. Hey, welcome. Welcome. Juan Toledano. That happens also with Space Marine shoulder pads. You know, I think with Space Marine shoulder pads, they actually can give full motion of the arm. It's just how you think about the shoulder pad. And I spend some how do you say special attention on my tutorial that I'm doing about how to paint Space Marines, about the shoulder pads, because I call them the shoulder pads of doom, because they are extremely difficult piece and very iconic as well of the Space Marines. So the problem is that if you think of the shoulder pads as a fixed armor piece that move and replicates, let's say that if it could be fixed to the shoulder, right? So it replicates exactly the movement of the arm. Then you couldn't have fully rotations and movement of the arm. But, and that's where the key is. And if, for example, if you see many of, because he was the first one to do that, of Paul Dayton. If you see his illustrations, and he was the very first one to do that, when the Space Marines lift the arm upward, the shoulder pads is not kept on top, but it just rotates backward. So you have to understand that the shoulder pads of the Space Marine moves independently and adapts to the movement of the arm. So it is not fixed to the arm. I don't know what kind of mechanism could allow to do that, but of course it's science fiction, so whatever. But yeah, so it, of course, maybe you cannot have fully motion as a with nothing around, but giving almost like full motion. So yeah, with no, because that's one of the things that, for example, going back to this higher gun game, I saw a lot of clipping, and of course I understand it's a video game, its clipping is gonna be something common, but I personally think it's a very lazy thing if you can avoid it. And you see that also a lot with 3D models of Space Marines as well, where things are placed in such a way that there's a lot of clipping. As soon they move, things start to clip, and it is not good. One of the other things that the Space Marine, the Astartes adaptation is done so well. The armor is designed, and he has understood perfectly how it works in a way that there is no clipping, or at least it doesn't show on the short films. So yes, I myself I think that the Space Marines armor can actually give you full emotion, even with the shoulder pads. Um, but I understand. I mean, the problem is like in most cases people do it wrong, and in a way that will not provide that um, capability. The same thing with the proportions. I mean, to be realistic, how um, I mean, this, for instance, this thing with the head, the size of the head without the helmet, and what that imply. So it's a very complex thing, and one that I'm very, I mean, that really show how nerd of I am. That I feel very passionate about volumes and proportions of Space Marines. I mean, who really cares in this world, right? Well, but me. But yeah, I when I upload the tutorials, you will see I dedicate a full chapter to the anatomy and proportions, and another one for volumes, and yeah. So it's that's one of the reasons why I'm of the opinion that the Space Marines are one of the fictional characters more challenging and difficult to do, without question. I think they are very, very difficult to do and to grasp how, or start to understand the way they really are. Of course, always thinking with a intention of making them from a realistic point of view. If it's stylized and cartoony, then that's another story, of course. Clever contender. It seems like it is an industry trend in games. How do you decide to do a piece in black and white first, or to start in color first? It Well, for me, unless it is asked directly from the a client, I normally tend to start directly on color, and in some cases, because it makes more sense and it makes my job easier, if to do it in black and white, then I do that. But I tend to go with black and white. Sorry, with colors directly. For example, this one I started in black and white, but I did it just for the sake of it, just to enjoy doing something a little bit different. But normally I always start directly in color. But yeah, so unless there's a real reason that is gonna benefit me to to do it in that way, I mean, like in black and white, I normally go directly with colors. But there are definitely a lot of situations where it makes more sense start in black and white. Clever contender. Also, what is your favorite way to add color to a black and white piece? And when do you decide to stop using layers effects and go straight into painting with color? Well, I don't know if you have been seeing previous streams when I was starting to paint this one, but once I have done the black and white, I add, depending, a color layer, this one, or an overlay. Normally it's overlay, and then I do like kind of a wash over the piece for the most basic colors and see, and then I start directly with colors on top of that, once I'm kind of happy with the overall directions with colors. Thank you for the stream. Glad I could catch it finally. Well, I'm happy that you have. So yes. Oh, one more thing. Wow, come on. Just kidding. Do you have other resources we can learn from, like Gumroad? No, not yet. I have plans for that. I have the recordings done. I just need to have the time to put together a proper tutorial. I have one for character design, but sadly I'm so busy I haven't had the time to do that. But so yeah, to your question, no. Anything there is on my YouTube channel, and that's it for now. But I have plans for Gumroads. Cantabrian, yeah, for sure. The sound design as well was very nice in Astartes. The plasma pistol pips and the magazine lock of the bolter, delightful. Yes, totally. I mean, of course, when you go into audiovisual medium, of course, the sound design is super important. Yeah. Juan Toledano, yes, I think them being hanging instead of being fixed in the shoulders. Yes, exactly. And I don't think of them exactly just hanging, but that they have some kind of very advanced motion that adapts to their movements. So if they want to put up the arms, it just move around, rotates around the axis of the arm and shoulders. Because if not, you cannot. It would clip here and it wouldn't work. Cantabrian, the rigging process in 3D has to try and answer the shoulder tolerance riddle. It has to have its own rules of articulation in the sense it is not locked to the pivot orientation of the arm. Yes, yeah, exactly. But that's what I mean that, there you go again. Paul Dayton. Many years ago, like 10 years ago already, I mean, when he started to make those Space Marines, he already envisioned that without any 3D of seeing. It doesn't make any sense if the shoulders are fixed. So it need to rotate somehow to allow the arms to move. And before that, you actually see a lot of illustrations, exactly that, just being fixed on the arms, and of course with all the problems. But all those things can be, all those mistakes can work on a 2D image, of course, because you can't cheat. But as you are saying, on a 3D model and with the volumes that you cannot cheat. And yeah. Clever. Awesome. Looking forward to it. Thanks again. Yeah, no problem. Hopefully sometime soon. But first, when it comes to tutorials, I'm doing this one for the Space Marines that is taking a very long time. And of course, the fact that I'm so busy with other things is not helping. So yeah, we'll see. But hopefully, my goodness, where it is? Yes, but hopefully, after that, like I said, I have the recordings. It's just make the proper script for it, and then the recording of the voice over and editing. So it's still quite a lot of work. I don't want. I refuse to do lazy Gumroad tutorials. if I want to put something there and people are gonna pay for that, I want it to be high quality and put the time to do something worth. There's already too many lazy Gumroad tutorials. Tutorials. So yeah. So let's start to explore some some options with the body here. So, for instance, going back to these things with adaptation and stuff, I'm trying my very best to apply these ideas to my concepts for Dark Tide. Trying to do things within this fine equilibrium between being faithful to the to the IP and make things recognizable, which is of course extremely important to do. You cannot just completely redesign things because then it is not anymore the IP. But still trying to make things in a way that make it look more real. But of course, I mean, there's obvious limitations that you can do, and I'm aware of that. Uh, Here, the thing is also that I don't want it to take too much space or protagonism. So I'm not sure. No. things I don't want to hide the stairs too much either, because they are going to be a very good element to show the scale of the gate. Also, I'm just remembering, today I was still reading quite a lot, making research for my personal project about space pirates. So I'm if you are following me on Instagram, you would know that I shared some days ago a photo with some of the books that I bought for my research, because of the illustrations and, well, of course, a lot of the information they have. These ones from the Osprey Publishing. And I have quite many. I bought quite many for it. So I was reading one of them, just because one of the things that I want really understand in detail is, for example, tactics of that age, of the 16th and 17th century, the technology of military hardware and how it affected. So to really have a grasp and understanding on how things were done, and therefore that's why they use things in certain way, so I can apply that to my project and adapt that with that kind of understanding, so to ground things in reality. And what I'm going to say is completely off topic from that, but just to give you a heads up of why. So I was reading this specific one about the conquistadors, Spanish conquerors in the Americas, and I realized how biased these books are as well. So they are fantastic. I really like these books. They have a lot of extremely useful information and illustrations and depictions, and they are great books. But at the same time, I was reading this and I was realizing how biased it is, and how careful you need to be when reading anything about history, because what I read this morning in this specific book were two things that made me realize how biased it is in two different levels. Maybe for those of you that are not Spaniards, this is the first time you hear about this, but it's something that is very well known in Spain, and it's called one could call it in English? The James, thanks for the follow. Called the Black Legend of Spain. So basically, this term or concept it's applied to the narrative used by the enemies of the Kingdom of Spain through the centuries to demise and portray Spain as a villain, as a bad in all the type of levels that you can imagine. And that is something very well explained, understood, especially from Anglo-Saxon sources through the centuries. And of course, it can be explained because of Spain became a superpower in an early age, and then England became the superpower later. So kind of the overall narrative of history is being led by the Anglo-Saxon view of history in about those things. For example, just to put an example, let's say the Spanish Inquisition. Oh, so terrible, and it, it's like they burn people, etc., etc., etc. And so it gives this. It is a war of narrative, right? Because yes, of course, the Inquisition. There was an Inquisition in Spain, but the first thing is not only there was Inquisition everywhere, and yes, they were terrible. They did, it was horrible things, right? But when it comes to facts about, let's say, burning, the Spanish Inquisition did not so much of that. Most of all the victims or heretics burn was done in Central Europe by and funny enough, not by Catholics but by Protestants. So that's a good example, right, of this type of narrative thing against Spain. Another one could be the death of millions in America, right? Like, yeah, the Spaniards killed millions, and once again, I mean, you need to be very nuanced with these things, right? It's like, yes, of course, the conquistadors were not nice people. They went there to sack, to conquest. I mean, we need to put things in context, right? We are talking about the end of the Middle Ages, so it is brutal people, and that's what everybody did. So yes, they went there not to spread, you could say, advances and culture. They went there to conquest, and with everything horrible that comes with that. But the fact is that most of the people died from diseases. So it's not like they were killed with purpose and intent by the Spaniards, right? So it's a very clever and subtle nuance of the narrative that then it portrays the Spaniards as more terrible than others, so you don't get the same kind of description when you talk about English colonies on America, right? And you could say that it was at least on the same level, but the ones that did horrible things were the Spaniards. So you see what I mean, right? So I'm not trying, once again, to wash away bad things done from Spaniards, but yeah, I hope that you get what I mean. So to the point, what I thought it was very interesting. So these books are first published in 1980. So the very interesting that I read was two things. At some point, so in this point in history, right? So with the discovery of America, you could argue, well, I mean, it is the fact. It starts that kind of the beginning of the Spanish Empire, and therefore the superpower of its era. And that could last more or less 200 years, more or less. So in historical terms, from any other type of empire, this kind of an average, right? It's not too short, it's not too long, it's kind of okay. So once again, bear in mind this thing with the narrative from Anglo-Saxon sources, and this is the case. So here, let's see where it is. So it's describing how, thanks to the gold discovered in the Americas, it offered the foundations for building this empire, which is true. But just pay attention to this very tiny thing. I'm gonna read it. So it says, the conquistadors, Spain's ex-soldiers in the New World, had won the battle for gold and make possible Spain's brief but brilliant burst of glory. So what do you mean brief? I mean, it's not brief, but you know what I mean. It's just like this intent. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of surprising, right? Is why do they need to put brief when there is not brief at all? So it's always a little bit of that kind of thing that is interesting to say the least. So this is the first bias. But then we'll see. I haven't read the whole thing, and maybe it corrects and changes things a little bit more. But this was very surprising because it continued talking about how brave these Spaniards were, going into the unknown and completely new world, and it's fascinating, right? And this is the second bias, which is a European bias. The other one, this first one, is more Anglo-Saxon or a British bias against the Spanish history. The other one is from a European perspective, because it says that, yeah, they were so brave. I can read it directly. It says, when Cortés advanced into the heart of the Aztec Empire, confronting and defeating armies of 40,000 or more, he had only 400 men, 15 horses, 10 heavy cannons, and 4 ladder pieces. That's it. And he said, and then later on he had 850 Spanish infantry, 86 cavalry, and 15 cannon. And yes, that is true. But that is it forgets to add the fact that with those very few hundred Spaniards, there were thousands of other Native Americans that fought with the Spaniards to take down the Aztec Empire, because they were oppressed by them, right? It's like a power struggle. So then you have that this second bias from an European point of view. Is like, yeah, the Spaniards, Europeans, they managed to defeat all these Native Americans just by themselves, and thousands of them, and they were just so few. Well, that is wrong. If they would have been only those few only, they wouldn't have managed to do that. So maybe they correct that and they go and explain a little bit more. And but just if you just read that, you what you get to understand is that actually those few hundred of Spaniards defeated thousands of Aztec warriors, but it's not true. It's very, very biased. So yeah, I don't know. I read it this morning and I thought it was very very interesting, and how kind of old these books are in that sense. So yeah, I don't know what you think, guys. And sorry, maybe you are not interested in history. I love it, but yeah, I'm doing this not only, as I said, for the love of history, but because I'm doing this research for my space pirates project, and I want to have I'm going to expand a little bit in the history a little bit wide to because I'm also reading about the Barbarian pirates, and it's also very contemporary for the conquistadors, but in the Mediterranean. So once again, from a military point of view and how they operate, I think it's relevant for me. But yeah, I mean, I myself, I hear talking about this bias thing, and in the Americas, normally what you hear, of course, I'm generalizing, all right, but if there is somebody to blame about the killing of Indians, it's always about Spain. But everybody fails to mention about the horrible things that the British did, or once the United States was created, all the ethnic cleansing, all the killing, and in this case purposefully. I mean, they knew what they were doing, they went for it, and we are talking in more modern times. So that's what I mean with this type of bias. And yeah, interesting topic. And once again, for those of you that might be there, it's like, I'm not trying to wash away the horrible things that Spanish conquest in the Americas did. Of course, all of these things were very bad. I'm just talking about the issue of narratives when it comes to history and the understanding of history. That, I mean, this very, very well known notion that the victors write the history, right? So that is very true. Peter, nobody expect the Spanish Inquisition. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Christopher Columbus had limited Spanish language. Yeah, he was Italian from Genoa, yes. He was Italian. He knew he didn't reach East India. The people he was referring to were not native of India. He was describing them as people who have faith, or Indios. Yeah, Indios is the Spanish way to say Indians. But yeah, I mean, of course, they knew they discovered something new that wasn't Indian. There's like these theories about the fact that Christopher Columbus knew that he was not going to reach India, but that he knew about this new land to the west from other people that had drew some maps or had been there before, which could be completely plausible and true. but yeah, I mean, about this thing with the conquest of the Aztec and Mayan and, well, not Mayan, but the Mayan people were, but yeah, it is insane. And once again, it really shows the type of people, how people were by then, right? I mean, well, we are not that different, but at least the notion of how to do things, and it's brutal. I mean, another thing that for example, I really like, and I think interesting, uh, especially when you read a lot about history and you know about history and you see a lot of flaws into certain ways of describing or the narratives of how things were. And I'm getting into muddy waters, perhaps. But for example, with a hot topic and about slavery, which of course, just, I mean, let's make it clear, just in case, even though it should be obvious, but of course, any type of slavery is horrible. All right, I'm not condoning anything. I think is despicable and all of these things. All right. So okay. So that being said, what I'm trying to, I mean, in the subject of what I'm talking about, history and having an understanding of the historical context, that is one thing that is normally very much lost when, especially in these times that we are living on, trying to judge or other times in history with a present perspective and understanding of things. And I believe that is completely wrong. So when it comes to slavery, which is very bad, so normally is always depicted like the Europeans were the slavers, right? It's like people from Africa, of course, which, for example, the British Empire was built thanks to the money of the human trafficking, right, with slavery. But the thing is, and we need to, and that's why I'm trying to point out that in previous times, so if that was done mainly as a very profitable business in the 17th century, we comes from a time in the 16th century where everybody was doing that, and not only Europeans. Europeans were sold as slaves by the Turks to Africa. So it's not, once again, something that I hate in many depictions of history is the monopoly of horrible things. You know, like, I don't know, the Mongols were terrible, or the Spaniards, or the Europeans, or everybody did horrible things all the time. And of course, it's like this thing with it is important to understand, and maybe from our perspective still, like, not forgive, but understand at least that, okay, we are talking about very different times, and people thought very differently than what we do now. And what was okay by then, it is, of course, it's not okay now, but by then it was. And people that by then could have been considered very ethical and moral, and now, if they were doing the same thing now, they will be considered monsters. So yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, so yeah, mentioning this thing with slavery, since I've been reading a lot about the Barbary pirates in the Mediterranean, and during since very long time, the Turks and the Barbary pirates, and both ways, all right. So every time they capture an enemy ship or a ship from another country, Muslim if you were Christian, or Christian if you were Muslim, and then they were sold as slaves in respectively. So yeah, Europeans definitely don't have the monopoly of being the slavers. They were the ones doing that in the Americas with African people, but they were being sold as slaves as well in North Africa. So it's yeah. So yeah, I think it is. History is very complex, and it's very dangerous to simplify things, and as normally we tend to do nowadays. Juan Toledano, te estás metiendo en todos los jardines hoy. Sí. Yes, I'm aware. Maybe I should stop. But yeah, I think as a somebody so interested in in history, I think it is fascinating how complex and nuanced things are. I mean, is this thing of putting slaves in the galleys? So that was the common thing to happen if you were captured. You were a Christian of any country except maybe France, because they had an alliance with the Turks. But then most probably, if you were a man, you would be put into the galleys of the Turkish fleet, navy. If you were a child or a woman, you will be sold as a sex slave in North Africa. And if you were a Muslim and captured by a Christian ship, and you'll be taken as to the galleys, and literally be a slave, but just rowing. So yeah. So yeah, that's why it is. I don't. It makes completely sense that that they started to do that with the poor African people. And also another interesting thing, who do you think the Europeans were buying the slaves from in Africa? From other Africans and from Turks. And so that's what I mean, that it's this thing with the narrative about slavery as it is at the moment is very simplistic. It's and poof, my goodness, so horrible. I mean, just reading some things about how the things that they had to endure, the slaves, through the journey to the Caribbean. Oh my, yeah, it's horrible. But this is one of the things that as soon as you start reading about history in depth, you start to see how many things in the current simplistic way of looking at history really don't hold up. Always things are black and white. There is good and bad. There is nothing of that sort. It's never that way. It's always a very gray area, and everybody's bad. Uh, really, everybody's doing horrible things. Peter, America was weird obsession with slavery being about race. But the reality is slavery has been going on since humans separated into tribes. Yes, yeah, totally. I mean, of course I understand it is a very it makes a lot of sense that there is a lot of talk, especially in the United States how do you say bubble, or since they have a lot of issues, right? Racial issues, discrimination, and the source of everything is the African slavery from the colonies, right? So, and all these things that we are talking about. So, I think it makes completely sense that there is a lot of talk about that. But yeah, as you are saying, it's been part of humanity since the dawns of time. So the thing that I find bad is this simplification, or it feels like, okay, now it feels like the source of all the wrongs about slavery is just Europe and Europeans, and that is not true. I mean, we have a good record of that, and shamefully, but as anybody, any other cultures around through history, right? So it's, I mean, yeah, everybody. There isn't, yeah. But yeah, on that specific time, I think yes, the Europeans, everybody. I mean, Spain, Portugal, France, but especially England had Dutch, Denmark. I mean, everybody, but especially uh, um, um, England, or the United Kingdom had a major role into that, and there is absolutely no way to deny it or wash away that responsibility for sure. Richard, you should return back to your project about space pirates and tell us something about that. Huh. I could, but I want to keep my cards close to yet. I yeah, I there's gonna be the time where I will start to share more things for sure. But yeah, what I can say is that it's, in a very simplistic way, it's about space pirates, and I'm trying to create a world or something based around that theme, but very much grounded in real piracy. So it's not, my pirates are not gonna be a product. They're even derived from the pop culture, but about real piracy and what really was, and very much inspired and grounded on real events, on the golden era of piracy. So I'm doing a lot of research into the Caribbean piracy with the Buccaneers, and later on in the 1700s, but also in the Mediterranean with the Barbary coast pirates. But that's just as a foundation to build upon. So it's So it's, what I'm gonna do is completely fictional, and it's in space, obviously. But I'm doing a lot of research to ground things in reality, and so that's kind of what I can say. And it is gonna be very grim, dark, very much. So it's not about happy pirates, but about what really means being a pirate, and and going back to the thing with the history, and it is insane. I mean, if you learn or read about pirates and this part of the history, it's fascinating. So I'm very, very much inspired by that, and I want to kind of use that as a foundation. Loosely. So it's not it's not gonna be either just change of visuals and everything is the same. It's definitely not. But the best way I can put it is like grounded in reality. Peter, what made slavery into America viable was the progress in logistics. Yeah. And barely, because once again, I mean, what it meant for the poor people to go through that journey. I cannot remember now the numbers, but it's an insane amount of people just died on the journey because of how bad conditions they were in. I mean, just like worse than cattle. It is insane. It is, yeah, it is insane. So but yeah, I'm extremely excited with this project, and it's a project that has been going on for many years, in the sense of planning and putting things in a place where I can start really working seriously and with it, and invest time with it. So yeah, it has been many years in the making, more in the sense of planning all the foundation, so I can start work seriously with that. And I don't have to worry so much financially. So yeah, with crowdfunding and things like that, hopefully I can make it work and people are interested with that. But yeah, it's so far I've been spending most of my time kind of preparing things so I can start working with that more time, because it's a very ambitious project as well. So it will mean that I need to put some serious time working on it, and of course I need to pay my bills. I need to eat and provide to my family. And I cannot do that just like that. So I need to build some kind of something to sustain been working with that, or to reduce the client work in some way so I can spend that time instead of on my project. But yeah, I'm extremely excited about it. I think it can be awesome. And yeah, and of course it's gonna be science fiction. And I mean, if you see a little bit of the things I have been posting on the on social media in these last 3.5 years, many things point a little bit, can give you a hint of some of the direction of where I'm taking things with this project, because many of those things has been just test of myself, of experimenting with directions and things that I would like to do for the project. But another thing that I can say that is not just like a intangible project. It's a very specific of what I want to do and my goals and what I want to obtain. So it's gonna be easy to understand once I make it public and open, so you can hear about it, and perhaps you feel also interested by it, and you can help to contribute to make it happen, hopefully. But one thing also that I can say without sharing too much is that I'm going very deep within the trope of space pirates and piracy, but in space, but also from a very, once again, realistic or grounded perspective. And yeah, very grim dark. I like that a lot. but I hope that I can actually make it more public and really make a proper introduction to it. Hopefully within this year. That would be fantastic. That's really what I'm trying to aim for. We'll see if I'm able to do, but yeah. Vincenzo, oh, fantastic that you are that joined the Discord channel. Fantastic. Welcome to it, and I have to say that your English it's pretty good, so no worries. And you are not gonna be the only one that English is not it first language. So you are not alone, and I'm with you there. My English sucks. Not, I'm not saying that yours does, but that mine definitely is not that good. So you shouldn't feel bad about it. But yeah, I mean, I rarely sharing anything about this project, but it's all the time in the back of my head. Even if I'm not doing anything specific or talking about it, but still I'm constantly thinking about it. And now, for example, in all this time, most of all the time that I'm dedicating to my projects, it's in research. So at this point, is more I'm on the gathering material that can be very useful and very interesting for the project. So it's yeah, most of my my energy so far with the project, aside of preparing the ground for to start with the work with it, it's research. But there is I still have done a lot of things as well, of designs and ideas and story and stuff like that. But so now I just need time to be able to do what I've been planning for such a long time, and I have very, very, very clear idea where I want to go. It's just, yeah, time and money. Peter, what do you use to organize your story, your world nodes, character arcs? Well, the thing is, I'm not building a story per se. Like I'm not doing a story. I'm just world building. So I don't need to worry much about those type of things, about arcs and things of that kind. So it's more of a world building project. And yeah, so there's gonna be stories more and things like that, but they are gonna be more like sneak peeks of things in this world, but not like an entire long story in that sense. And when it comes to organizing ideas and stuff like that, it's more notes. Yeah, I keep a list of notes of things that I think are relevant, and things of that kind. And funny enough, also a lot of it is just in my head, and super fresh, even after such a long time planning and thinking about it. And for example, Richard, you asked if I could tell more about it, and I said that I really cannot yet. I'm dying to share with you guys about the project. I really am. I'm just trying to be a little bit more careful in the sense of that I do everything in the proper way before just sharing it. Because I want to make this in the most professional way as I can, to a certain degree, because I'm very serious about it. So yeah, so that's the main reason. But I'm really, really, really dying to share with you guys, and hopefully I catch your attention and you think that it's an interesting project as well. But I would say, I mean, this is a wild guess, but even though my project has nothing to do with Warhammer 40k, that being said, if you like Warhammer 40k, I think that there's a very big chance that you are gonna like my project. But once again, it has absolutely nothing to do with it. It's a very, very different thing. But maybe on the grim dark vibe. And of course it's in space, but that might be it. Cantabrian, hey Miguel, what's your thoughts on placing a hand of some sort belonging to the creature in the dark on the side of the arc? Too cliche, might be nice way to lead into the darkness. Yeah. That's a good idea. I still haven't jumped at all into it, but yeah, that could be definitely a good thing to do. And I don't think it's cliche. I think it's could be a very clever way to lead the eye. So yeah. So far, the thing is that normally I would be doing something more with it, but I'm so focused on him, and since he's still gonna be the focal point. I have no fear of putting too much detail in it because I want it to have a lot of details. So that's why I'm kind of leaving the rest a little bit for later. But yeah, that's a very good idea. Thanks. And Tavern, also looking forward to your Space Pirates project. Nice. That's music to my ears. But of course, I mean, maybe once I just start to share things, maybe you dislike it. But so that's always a possibility for sure. But well, I was going to say something I completely forgot. Something about the project. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it will come back later. Peter, I found that while I was keeping my stories in my head, they were super and fantastic, but it wasn't until I tried to put them into words that I found many holes. Yeah, well, of course, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, in my case, the type, like I was saying, the project that this project of mine is not about making a story, but it's world building. So it's more of design and creating a foundation where maybe you can build stories and stuff like that. But yeah, it's more of a world building scope. And with that, I'm very confident since most of my professional career is based on that, on creating a multi-million worth IPs. uh, so I have quite a lot of experience doing that. But this time I want to this is what I wanted to talk about, is that so far in all my professional career I've been doing this type of work for companies and doing things that maybe I wasn't that keen or interested on. This project is really something that I love about pirates and specifically space pirates. So this is I'm really looking forward to start with it because I'm so passionate with it. I really want to do that, but with my world and something that I truly believe that is gonna be awesome, and I know it is awesome. So I think it's gonna be super enjoyable to do. And so far, the things that I have done, I really have enjoyed, and I think it has such a huge potential for something super fun and interesting as well. So I have to deal with other type of issues than regular than writing a story. So, and for instance, I don't have a big experience writing. I can do, and I think I'm a good storyteller. But at some point, I might need to, for example, get help of a real professional writer, for instance, for some things, perhaps, um, for the project. But once again, it is not about a specific story but it's just building the foundation for a universe or a world, and make it in a way that feels real, feels plausible, and most importantly, feels appealing and suggesting. That's one of my most important aspects, because I love to see that in other people work, when I'm transported to that universe, it makes my imagination fly. It's so suggestive. It's so that's kind of my main goal with it, to be able to create that for others, and that feel that is a very compelling and suggestive and inspiring universe. Hey, Pontus. Hey, welcome. How are you doing, man? Welcome to the stream. Peter, okay, so how do you get your audience excited in your world? Very good question. Well, it depends on what we are referring to, because there are many different scopes to this, right? So we could be talking in terms of marketing, right? In terms of finding the audience or exposing the world to an audience. So that's one thing. The other one that you might be asking is in terms of, okay, you have the attention of people, how to make that world appealing. Which one are you talking about? Because these two things are equally important. That whatever you do is appealing on itself, that it's of very good quality and interesting, but at the same time you need to be able to have the proper tools and do things in the proper way, so you can expose that to an audience. It's a little bit of what we were talking last week regarding artists and selling, being good at selling their art. So it's a little bit the same kind of thing with this, right? So yeah, let me, Peter, let me know to which one you are referring to. Yeah, Peter, appeal, but you mean once again from the perspective of the the world itself, the project itself, of being appealing, or okay, I think I just answered myself there. All right. Uh, Richard, I'm quite sleepy right now. I think I'm going to go to bed. It was a pleasure to be with you as always. Good night, guys. Good night, Richard. Sleep well. Thanks for joining the stream today. So, okay. So if we are talking about appeal, of course, that is, first of all, it's going to depend quite a lot, right, on the individual. So it is very important to find the proper audience for it, right? So something that I might feel it is extremely appealing might be extremely boring or uninteresting for somebody else. So first I need to find or try to target the audience, the proper audience for my project. So that is a very important thing, but that's a different story. So okay, so assuming that I'm targeting and that I'm managing to expose my project to the people that potentially might like it. So there are many different ways, right? So I am of the opinion that in order to do, if we jump into the world building business or activity, or yeah, I am of the opinion that it is, and of course, in this case, if it's a completely fictional world, it is not based on the real world. It is extremely important to have certain degree of foundation into the actual real world. First of all, because if not, things can be, if things are too fantastic, too different, and there is no some kind of branch or something that people can hook to that, it is going to be very difficult for people to relate to that fiction that you are creating. So it is extremely important to have, to a minimum degree, of course, then it can vary quite a lot, but to a certain degree, it has to be built from a real foundation of the world. I mean, if you think, for instance, of Lord of the Rings, right? Created by Tolkien, it is completely fantastical fiction world. It has nothing to do with the real world, but still it is easy to relate to, and it's very appealing because it is based and grounded in things from our real world in terms of history, cultural heritage, mythology, and religions. So some things are more loosely grounded, others more literal, but still it used as a foundation to build his own world and universe, and it makes it very easy to relate to, and therefore making it very appealing because it is easy for you to transport yourself because things make sense. There is a certain level of logic in how things work in this world, in that world. Then, and I think that is extremely important above anything else. I truly do. Then, of course, you can have as grounded in and based in the real world things, but if it's poorly done, right, poor quality, so or it is not cool enough, like let's say, for instance, I don't know, the designs of things are looking very ugly or very bad done, then of course it is not going to be appealing. So it still need to be have a very high degree of design, right? Things need to look nicely, believable, but also looking cool. So I think the rule of cool shouldn't be the first thing to be focused on when creating a new universe, but still something important to have in mind, and things need to look good enough. So basically, it's kind of finding this this balance between, okay, creating things that are beautiful or cool, but still so on the outside, but they are built on top of something very solid, right? That foundation that we were talking about. Because if not, when you create something very beautiful or very cool looking, but it's has nothing underneath, it's very shallow, and it doesn't reach more than the visual appeal, and that is very superficial. So it's never gonna catch the attention of the audience on the long run. And the other way around, and especially since this project is to a very high degree have a visual component, definitely, of course, the design aspect is going to play a big role. So things need to look cool as well. And of course, well, then you get into this area where it can be a little bit more muddy, because of course what I can think it looks very cool might not look very cool for somebody else, but there is nothing that you can do about that. So therefore you shouldn't care. You need to just do whatever you like in that sense, and believe on that, and of course have a objective mind. So you need to be able to also see through and see if things doesn't work, but still be faithful and creative, and believe on that vision. And and that's how, for example, many new things catch the attention of the audience, right? When somebody does something that is not too mainstream, and it appeals to a very core audience, but small, but it has this freshness, right? This uniqueness, because it's created, it comes from a point of passion, that person really is passionate about it, and that's a very powerful thing, instead of trying to appeal like the mainstream, like the big public. I think you need to do whatever you think it's appealing to you, and hopefully if you do things right, all these other steps that I was talking about, then you will manage to catch the attention. So yeah, I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying, or do you feel that I answered your question? Peter, you paint great. You have got good composition. So I'm not worried about getting eyeballs on your project, but how do you hold them? Do you love Warhammer, or is it the love of the lore? Okay, I see what you mean. So once again, it is in that case what I was mentioning about how important it is to uh, have a solid foundation and something uh, grounded to certain degree in in reality. It could be the present day, of course, but it can be based in historical times, like as I'm doing, for example, with um, the golden era of piracy and the Barbary coast piracy, the Barbary pirates in the Mediterranean. So yes, I think, of course, this is my opinion. I might be somebody else thinks otherwise or disagree with me, but I think that is a vital part of the job, so to speak. Making a world that is easy to relate to, even if is a universe that is extremely crazy. But still, to some degree, it needs to be easy to relate to. If not, it will fail and people will not find it attractive. And of course, in my case, well, I think in these projects, I think the theme itself, one could say, space pirates. I think it's personally, I think it's a very cool theme. Um, Also, another thing that is I it personally appeals to me a lot, and that's how I'm planning um, to do the project is of suggesting the power of suggestion. Sometimes it is better to leave things not completely explained or defined, but enough information just to make sense of things, but leave a lot of room for people just to fill the gaps, and therefore creating this sense of trying to think about it and suggest, because the the advantage of doing something like that is that you will feel those things with those aspects that kind of hit the sensible spot for you as an individual that might be not exactly the same for me. So that's also a big plus. Peter, I'm just trying to keep you talking about your project. Well, you are doing a good job at that. Peter, like the Clone Wars in Star Wars: A New Hope by uh, Obi-Wan. it was grand and mythic until we got the next movies. Well, yeah. I mean, we get there into yeah. uh, the yeah, the new movies are a crime. It's and yeah, they are not making they are that's a good example of how not to do world building, because you could they have the advantage of having an already very fleshed out universe, right? The Star Wars universe. So they actually had it pretty easy in that sense to expand and on the timeline, right? And continue, but they did such a poor job. It's impossible to relate to because nothing makes sense. Um, but yeah, I mean, this thing with world building is something that I've I love to do. I enjoyed a lot. It's extremely challenging and a lot of work, but at the same time, is there's nothing I like more than creating new worlds and yeah, and stories within it, within them, or creating or facilitating the stage for those great stories. I mean, and once again, going back to this idea of grounding things in reality, you just pick any major fictional world universe that is very successful, and you always will find, to a higher or lesser degree, but still, um, how it is grounded in some way or another into the real world. And that's something that I find a lot of new concept artists or students fail to comprehend when it comes to, for example, designing things, right? It's like, let's say you see a great design and it looks fantastic, it looks very cool, right? So the rule of cool is there. It's like, oh wow. And then it's like, therefore, then I'm gonna do also a very cool character, and they start to work on it, and the only thing in mind is, I need to do a cool looking character, let's say a space soldier, or just for the sake of the example. So the main focus is cool looking space soldier. But that's kind of trying to build a house by the roof, because that original design that they saw, oh, I think my Photoshop crashed. What? Hello? Ah, no, it is. Okay, wait a second. What? Something happened with my Photoshop. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. All right. So as I was saying, so that original space soldier that inspired them to start with their own, what they fail to understand is that it wasn't created from a point of, okay, I'm gonna do a very cool looking soldier, but of maybe trying to make a design that makes sense within the world, that is practical, that is, I mean, and within those designing parameters, then you create something cool. But the looking cool out of itself doesn't lead you to looking cool. It's gonna make something look very superficial, and yeah. So that's why it's so important to ground things within some parameters and grounded. And of course, once again, I mean, this rule of cool, it is important, and it's important not to forget about it. But it cannot be the priority or the main focus. Need to be there, is necessary, but but just as a second thing. Good that I have I can mute the microphone there. um Peter, did you ever see that world building book done by David Wiles Steam Labs? No, I don't think I have. What is it about? Or just like that, it doesn't ring a bell, but I might have. I just forgot about it. Can you elaborate a little bit more? Just if I know about it, but no, I don't think so. I mean, I have talking about this. I have to say or share something that kind of actually played a role into taking the decision of starting working on my own. And it's this thing with working with worlding oh my goodness, building worlds and creating IPs. And it's the fact that I've been spending my whole life doing that for big companies and corporations, and my work has translated into IPs that exist right now that they are making millions, right, for these companies. But I just got paid a salary, which is, of course, you can say is totally fair. But in the big picture of things, I started to think about is like, I'm kind of, I mean, what is the point of working for all these people? And I see nothing of that, right? I feel a little bit like kind of tired of, in some way, kind of used. And of course, it's relative, right? I understand it's just like, yeah, you get a salary for that, and with all the perks that comes from having a salary, and but still, it's in the big picture of things. I personally have started to see that as a not a good deal. So I kind of became a little bit frustrated about that, and I said, okay, so if I'm gonna do that, I prefer to do my own thing, and I will, of course, most probably don't do any money with that, but at least I'm gonna do what I want, and I'm not being exploited, so to speak. Even though I have never been exploited, but you understand what I mean. It's a more like philosophical, or well, maybe not, but way of seeing things in the big picture. Where I see a lot of extremely talented people that they are just squeezed and milked by these corporations to create IPs that are worth millions and millions of dollars, and it's at their expenses. And once you are tired and burned from all that work, you just like you just quit and they just move on with something else. But you get nothing from the fruit of your labor, just that salary. So, and again, I understand it is, yeah, no exploitation in that sense, but But when these big corporations are making millions, then to some degree, yes. But anyway, so that's kind of another reason why I decided just to fly free as a butterfly with all the yeah, challenges that comes with that. So I'm here criticizing about those salaries, but at the same time, now that I don't have that and a fixed position in on a job, then it's obvious the good thing that is as well, right? So the financial stability that comes with that, and peace of mind, which is very important. So I'm not trying to negate that. And I know that, of course, there is lots of people struggling just to get that. So yeah, I'm not blind to that side of things. Peter, sci-fi world builds. I'm trying to remember the name. Okay. I mean, something that I can say about my project is that it is not going to be just a mere gallery of pretty images, you know, because I find that extremely boring. It is going to be a deep dive into that world. So it's not just pretty pictures and that's it. It is a much wider scope for the project. That's what I can say without telling much. Pontus, yeah, feels bad when developers don't have any royalties on profit for what they create. Yes, yeah, Pontus, yes. Yeah, that's kind of what I mean, once again, I'm totally aware of, yes, of course, having a job, it's great, and it is, if it's a normal job and how do you say, decent paid, is no exploitation, right? Except if it's some clear signs of exploitation, which those exist. So by fun, thanks for the follow, thanks for the follow, and welcome to the stream. Mike, yeah. But so yeah, that being said, and having that clear out, I see this kind of big corporation type of thing is like, yeah, they don't share those profits in a fair way with the people that made possible those profits in the first place, and with all the sacrifices involved with that. And I see that a big reality, and I don't know how it is in other industries, but definitely on the video game industry, it is that way. And yes, it of course it depends. In some studios that is different, and they definitely give, for example, great bonuses and things like that. But in many others, they don't. And still, that it's a pretty tiny thing compared to the millions that they do. And they just keep for the shareholders and owners, right? So that's what I mean by exploitation, right? Is my creative work, it is used, and at the end of the day, it's a bad deal always. In it, yeah. aside then, of course, then I mean there are so many different angles to this. And there's of course the creative aspect of the creative freedom that you have with these things, or when you work for a big company, or when you are working on your own, right? And Peter, it is really a portfolio book with a loose sci-fi story put in it. All right, I see. Um, okay, Peter. Take care and thanks for joining in. I can say that my project and the scope for my project is not that. Like I say, it's not gonna be a gallery of cool images and some loose story. No, it is not gonna be that. Cantabrian, does what you are talking about relate to illustrators factoring in license and copyright fees on top of the fees for the service and how long it takes? Yeah, I mean, you could argue that way as well. um, for sure. I mean, and of course there are different levels, right, of wrongness or rightness in all of these. But think about companies where they do million. I mean, and that's what I mean, millions, right? And based on the creative work of some people, and those people get an extremely, I mean, it's not a 0.0% of that money. So in terms of salary or fee that they are paid to do that creative work, so it is a bad deal in that sense, right? You might do good enough so you still can live decently, but in terms of, once again, the insane amount of money that these companies do thanks to your work, then the fee that they pay you or the salary that pays you really doesn't add up in that sense. That's why, for instance, other industries, let's say like marketing and or marketing, illustration, and those things, and companies, they understand it better, and that's why they are the fees in that industry are very high. Because yeah, I mean, okay, you want um, your product to be shown and work for these audiences, and you are expecting millions in revenues, fine, then I'm gonna charge you adequately to do that, and then it is a more fair deal, right, between the parties. But when it comes to our area, it is not that way, sadly. Luis, hello, man. Glad to see you around here. So curious about your personal project. It will be amazing, sure. Thanks. You are very kind. But just wait for it, and then you can judge. Also, Luis, I'm so hyped about your project, but I will be patient to know what is it about. It's about grimdark space history, and as you said, made with passion. You will take my money. Well, again, just wait for it, and let's see. Maybe you don't like it or whatever. But I really, really appreciate your support, man. I really do. So thanks a lot. But yeah, I'm very excited about it. I cannot. You have no idea how much I'm dying to share with you guys and really be able to start seriously working and grinding with the project. It's been yeah, since I left my former work at Ubisoft. I've been um, thinking, planning, and working with it. So it's gonna make 4 years now. So it's a very long time just to build the foundation so I can start working on it. So that's kind of, maybe I'm doing things wrong. Maybe things can be done faster, but in my experience, I see that that's how long it takes to do something like this. And of course, I mean, I could have done it before, but then I would have had to sacrifice many things. So I had taken a more conservative route, and that's why it has taken this long, kind of. But I'm hopefully approaching the moment to kind of started with it in a more serious light. Enes, why are you sad? Don't be sad. Cantarium, I am in agreement with what you are saying. I have been researching as I want to go into illustration alongside 3D. What I saw is that there was a scaling fee depending on exposure, usage length, etc., negotiated by the artist. I'm a noob in this sense, so just putting out what I have seen. Yes, and I don't have a big, long experience as an illustrator myself. As I said, I started doing illustrative work, like 4 years ago only. So I have a very limited experience. But as far as I know, things have been also deteriorating through the years when it comes to illustrators and their fees, because before it was much better paid with including royalties and things like that. Now in many of illustrative work for big companies, and especially when it comes to entertainment industry for games, board games, and stuff like that, they just give you have a fixed fee, and that's it. There is no royalties involved. There is nothing. You get paid once, and that's it. And that is not good. Um, that is not good. So the worth of illustrators' work is devaluating. Maybe in other areas that still it's fine, but as far as I see within the entertainment industry, it is not the case. I mean, this thing is the norm now, right? That you are get paid a fixed fee and that's it. When what it should be is that, okay, yeah, you get a fee for the work, but then also royalties. Because yeah, nowadays you just give total author rights to that company, which is insane if you think about it. Um, Yeah, Cantabrian, that isn't good. It does piss me off. Creative roles are specialists. Creative roles are specialists. Yet so many companies lump multiple specialties into one role while paying little. Yes, totally. Yes. And once again, it just devaluate what you do, even though they make huge amount of work. So they there is a lot of worth into the work that you are doing. It's just they are just getting it almost for free. I mean, that's what I mean. That in the marketing world, that is very well understood, and the fees paid by companies for doing any creative work for marketing it is not based in time, in how long it took you to do something, but in the worth, the value that that work provides to the client. And that is something completely ignored in our industry, and made the norm, right? Enes, Malik, I'm sad about art industry. I'm about to get in, but I will do good art anyway. Okay, well, don't be sad. I mean, I'm just you still can make a living and a decent living, and it is fine. What I'm saying is that in the big picture of things, uh, it is a. I mean, we are getting. It's a little bit of a con situation, right? Where we do some type of work that it values a lot, and companies get a lot of value out of it. They gain millions, but still you only get paid a salary, or so in the big scale of things and perspective, it's we are getting rid of, but still, I mean, you can at least you still can make a decent living, so it is not that bad either, right? So there is so I just want to make sure you yeah, I mean, even myself as a creative, as an independent artist now, I'm my own employer. I still uh, can make a living out of it. It's a challenge always, but still you can do that, and it is fine. I'm not living under a bridge, so to speak. So you can make a living out of it. So it is fine. Um, but still, that doesn't mean that the wealth it's yeah, that is a fair trade anyway. That's why one of the reasons, again, is like, yeah, for that I prefer just to do my own project, and at least if I don't get any money out of it, at least I do something that I enjoy, and it's my thing. um, so at least I get that. Luis, it's so cool to hear you, how important to you and how many energy and passion you put into your project. It's a pleasure to support you, and so interesting to know about the reality of the industry, about the differences between the IP owners and millions that they win, and all the curritos that sometimes did not get paid their worth. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Happy to hear, man. And once again, you are the best, Luis. You are such an amazing supporter. You are the best. But yeah, it is that way, and it is in that sense. It's sad, and myself, as having been part of that, it kind of a part of me pissed me off. Is I mean, when you hear how much, I don't know, like let's say the last big IP that I work with, and I worked very intensely to create this same IP, the Division IP. Now, out of my head, I don't know, but we are talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And I can say with pride that I was, I mean, not the only one. Of course, I was part of a core team of people, but still, I played an important role into developing and creating what that IP is and what made it so appealing. And I get nothing of that. Um, of that money back, right? Once again, yes, it's a fair through a salary and certain bonuses, but that's bonuses is another story. Um, which was I can't say that I in my opinion I got completely robbed, but uh, but yeah, so it's it is yeah. So basically, you are making the owners of that in that case contribute to this company to make them rich, but you are not. You definitely don't get rich. That's for sure. I can tell you. You can make a living out of it, but you will not get rich. That's for sure. But they are getting rich. Uh, so yeah, it's of course once again nobody force you to anything. It's decent jobs and decent paid and all of that. So um, that's on the great scale of things. Yeah, that's why I personally decided just to fuck off. I just like I just left. And of course, I mean, as a freelancer, I'm still within that same system, right? I'm still doing all that, but still feels different because, well, you have more. You can decide more for yourself. You have, yeah. So it's even though it is not a huge radical change in that sense, but still, it is a change, and it's once again for me since I left that job and freelancing has been more of a not a goal out of itself but a mean to an end which is to work on my projects. So far it's been a way to make a living while I manage to and struggle to build this foundation to work on my own projects, and we'll see what happens. Maybe it I managed to do something out of it. I'm definitely will not get rich out of it at all. It's just at least to be able to make it a novel how do you say normal wage, but just doing what I love to do. So basically that's yeah, so something that I love and I feel very passionate about. But yeah, if for those of you that I'm pretty sure not of you it's on that camp, but if you want to get into this for the fame or to get rich, you are on the you're you're on the wrong place. Time for bed, Pontus. All right, good night. I think it's well, it's 7 past 12 here. So yes, it's gonna be also bedtime for me. I need to get up very early tomorrow. So yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it for today. A good night, Pontus, and yeah, good night, everybody, or good day, depending on where you are. Once again, it's been an absolute pleasure having you all here and talking to you and sharing thoughts. And yeah, it's always, I really enjoy streaming and talking to you. So if everything goes as it should, next stream will be again Saturday, same time. And yeah, I wish you an awesome end of the weekend and the rest of the week. Have fun, do awesome things. If you have been doing things on the while during the stream, please share it on the Discord server. We'd love to see. And yeah, stay safe, healthy, and take care. And see you next week. Take care. Bye bye.